Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the COYGIG podcast. Kathleen McNamee coming to you on the eve of another international break. But before we look ahead to that double header against Greece and the Ireland squad, which is being announced tomorrow morning, possibly will be announced by the time we put this out. So it'll be interesting to see how much our thoughts collide with what is actually announced by Carla Ward. We will also have a look back on all the action from the WSL this weekend. And of course, what are we on now? Like the third meeting of Chelsea and City after the last couple of weeks. We're certainly getting our money's worth between those two teams over the last while. Joining me to talk about that and plenty of other stuff, I have Karen Duggan and Scarlett Herron. Guys, very nice to see you both again.
You too.
Let's look at the international window first, 'cause as I said, that squad is being announced at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Carla Ward is going to address the press at 10 a.m. Nathan Murphy will be there for us, so keep an eye out on Off the Ball because there will be updates on the squad that she does pick. But Karen, to go to you first. Obviously, we were very disappointed after the last round of fixtures. We saw some naivety at times, but by and large, it was a squad that we expected it to be. There wasn't any major changes in that department. Do you expect anything much out of this next international window and this new squad?
I wouldn't expect wholesale changes in any way. Maybe the introduction of a couple of players. She might have had a look at some of the fringe players the last day and maybe want to rotate them a little bit based on who's playing well in England and WSL2 and stuff. Maybe like Erin McLaughlin or someone like that. Like maybe one or two might come in. But I don't see wholesale changes. I think that she'll have learned a lot about our players from those games and she'll maybe want to bring things back to basics, bring things back to the drawing board and seeing how she can get better out of her current squad. Because, like I said, the pool is not humongous to pick from outside of the standard squad that we've seen kind of over the last couple of years. So it's more about doing better with what she has. We don't want to see us trying a load of new things, but I think it's about being less naive, playing to our strengths, and maybe in training everything seemed great because she'd been away from it before, and the buzz was good, and things were working well in training, but it didn't translate onto the pitch. So I think that there was a lot of work to do, and it's probably easier to do that with the group that's already there, having learned so much from them. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyes on this, given how disappointing the last camp was. That there there's a point to prove. If I was a player, I'd be mad to get back in as well and prove a point that that wasn't the type of performance I want to put in a green jersey. I'm sure Carla Ward puts her hands up and said the approach was wrong. So I'm sure they're chomping at the bit, both the current squad and the management, to try and right those wrongs a little bit. So no, I wouldn't be. I don't think we've been overly shocked in a long time. Obviously, she brought in one player kind of out of the blue, in the last camp, didn't end up using her. So maybe that's an in and out kind of job there. But yeah, I guess we'll just wait and see. I don't expect us to be able to do a full pod on it, but we'll see. Maybe she'll surprise us.
Well, I think the last big surprise that came into the squad, and it's probably apt considering the fact that they've announced that they're going over on a tour of the US and playing the US women's national team twice during the summer when we should be preparing for Euros. But anyways,
Yeah.
it's probably Sinead Farrelly, isn't that? Like just in terms of
Yeah.
and stature and in
That
general.
was, I would say, obviously it came with a lot of talking points given her age and how in and out of the game she was. But in terms of ability and technical ability and what she added to us in that short period, that was a positive. So if she finds another Sinead Farrelly, hopefully in her 20s, like we'll happily take that with open arms. But whether she's gone looking beyond where we are, or whether she is going to focus on the core group, I'd be surprised if she made huge wholesale changes at this point.
Scarlett, what do you think? Obviously, we did that game in Tala together, and we managed to stay awake during it. It wasn't the most exciting of events. Now, in fairness, pitch wasn't great at the time, just in terms of the weather conditions. But I think after with the Slovenia game, after it was kind of hard like we maybe should have seen a bit more that night or commented a bit more on what we saw than what we did at the time?
Yeah, I think Karen touched it there, like just from a player's point of view, like surely they'll all want to go in now and sort of show themselves again because it's not anywhere near a performance to be proud of. And like you're looking back on the Turkey game and saying we take a boring 1-0 rather than getting hockeyed. But yeah, I think it probably took us all by surprise and probably took the players by surprise as well. You can kind of see that. Like I know it was a while ago, but even during the game, was it 35 minutes in, we're 3-0 down, everyone's kind of looking around going, what do we do now? Like plans kind of out the window. And I know, to be fair, Carla Ward took responsibility for the decisions she made. Like a lot of players were playing out of position, trying new things like moving Kate into midfield, which is something that a lot of Irish fans have looked for a while. But it probably just wasn't the most. It's not the smartest thing to do. You can't just put your best player anywhere on the park and expect her to play well. Like she's the best left back, probably one of the best left backs in the world for a reason. But you can't just stick her in the 10 and hope she works wonders. So yeah, I think there's a lot to work on there. But I think that's something that the girls are prepared to do, and also Carla Ward is prepared to sort of sit with them and work around what's happened and build on it because I think with the heartbreak of the Euros that they're really now probably at an all-time low in terms of probably morale and just walking into camp just be a bit of a sour taste in the
Yeah.
mouth like so no doubt they'll want to go out and get a good result now
Yeah.
in
What
the
I think is
fixtures.
important now is her leadership group and establishing a really strong leadership group there because obviously we've had the retirements and we've been without Louise Quinn through injury. It's important that people are willing to take on that responsibility. And like Scarlett said, when we were 3-0 down, they were looking around. But sometimes you have to find something from within and it can't just all fall on the captain and vice captain. There has to be a spread there. So maybe just giving that responsibility out amongst the squad would be a starting point to kind of alleviate that kind of problem that I thought was quite evident in that game that there was a bit of what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, and then looking to the bench, like, yes, there were mistakes made on the bench, but sometimes looking a bit within and some people thrive under those conditions, given those extra responsibilities. And I think that you can tell a lot from people's character after a game like that and who wants to come back and bring the squad together internally. And I think that would be a very good starting point if I was in Carla Ward's shoes. I think that's something I would certainly be looking to do right now.
Obviously, we're not in the camp to know like exactly how the dynamics work, but who would be the players that you think could step into that role or take the position of, say, like a Nifahi or someone or a Louise if she's not available through injury?
Well, obviously you've got someone like Courtney who's playing consistently at the highest level. Heather Payne earned her 50th cap, so I know she's a quieter character, but maybe that's something that would be within her realm now, and given her experience within the squad. Um, like it's really up to who they identify as those characters. It doesn't always have to be a starter. I'd imagine Amber Barrett's a really popular player amongst camp. But obviously you need people on the pitch as well to take that on, and it can't always be Denise and Katie. So, um, I'd hope that some players will put their hand up and be ready to take that next step because footballers, yeah, we talk about technical ability and this, that, and the other, but sometimes you have players on the pitch for what they can bring to a team in terms of that gelling aspect, that coaching aspect. Personality should be a big thing. I think it's a little bit lost in the modern game. It's not overly encouraged and we don't see a huge amount of it, but I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I think that's where we are at the moment, that should be taken into account what you can bring to bring this squad together and make us hard to beat again.
Scarlett, I mentioned earlier those two games that have been announced in the US. The last time we were over in the States was just before the World Cup. We were very happy because Sinead Farrelly had been brought on and got the opportunity to see what she was going to bring to the squad. We had the optimism of going to our first ever major tournament, but obviously the setup for this time around is a little bit different. And thinking to that game back in Coper and the performance that was put on and perhaps the changing nature of the squad, like, is this a dangerous one to be going and doing this summer when, as we've talked about before, you know, the attitude around the camp probably isn't at the highest or the confidence isn't at the highest, and then you're going and facing potentially the best team in the world or one of the best teams in the world alongside one of the best coaches in the world.
Yeah, I think it was definitely interesting. There must be obviously the connection with Carla and Emma Hayes obviously shining through there to make that happen. But here, like it's a great fixture, and obviously it's a really great camp for the girls to go out and sort of come together again because like as we spoke about earlier when we were talking in the group, like Ireland don't have a major tournament this summer. All the other European nations will. So they'll all be together for 3 or 4 weeks and obviously competing at the highest level. So I think it's good to get something organized quickly, get a good opponent, and yeah, like it'll be a very tough test against like the US. Like you're going out there and it's nearly damage control from the off. But I think we need to focus more on these 2 games, which we can actually win. I think this will show a lot now, especially tomorrow with the squad announcement. Like we have, I suppose, Carla was kind of probably going off other people's voices the last camp in terms of player selection. Obviously she wouldn't have been that aware of the players around the squad. But I'd say now she's done a lot more research, had time to go to games, to analyze games. So it'll be interesting to see the sort of player she wants picked out. But yeah, I do think it'll be tough in June. But as we were saying, there's not many other teams you could probably guess at that time of year, given that we're
I
not
think
going to be
that's a
able to
really
stream
good
it.
point, though. The length of the camp. I think if they can make that quite an extended camp, then the games they're just a bonus. Because for me, if you're just going and it's a short camp against America, there's nothing to lose, but I don't think there's much to gain. But if you're going to have an extended breakaway where you're quite isolated and you're within the squad and you're not in Ireland and you get a lot of time on the pitch with them, then it can be very, very valuable if they do make that a bit of an extended camp. I think that's a great idea if that's what's on the cards. We don't know if the finances stretch to that. I hope they do. But in terms of the games, Olympic champions, we know we should be preparing for Euros. It's I guess it's a chance to go back to basics and in the defensive mindset and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a good point, Scarlett. We'll see what contact time, the buzzword that's there at the moment, what contact time Carla gets with them over that.
You talk about budget there. Like I understand, obviously going to the US would be expensive, and obviously a budget is probably the buzzword now around the FAI. But there's no reason why players couldn't come in for a week or 10 days before the camp. I know that the
Mm.
games are 4 days apart, I think. Like obviously if you fly out, you'll have to stay there for maybe a week, but there's no reason why there can't be a camp based in Abbottstown and staying in Dublin.
Mm.
Obviously it could cost, and like as you said, like the contact time is very valuable to work on. Like it's a very different system Carla wants to play, so it needs time. Like the players need time to be able to understand it and figure out how they're going to work around it and figure out different things like that. And it does take time, and I don't think camp every 2 or 3 months is enough to establish something in the next year or so. I think it needs to be a lot more frequent. So hopefully, I should say.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see something from it that feels beneficial and, even if it's bringing in those newer players or maybe some younger players and getting the contact hours with them and getting the contact hours with who you think your strict 13, 14 is going to be consistent throughout the next couple of years, that will all be very beneficial. Just to briefly look at stuff here in the league before we go, Scarlett, I assume you're a happy woman 3 rounds into the season, unbeaten, top of the league, just yourself and Athlone up there.
Yeah, I mean, a tough opening few fixtures first. I think in hindsight, if you had said to me 4 weeks ago, would you take 7 points from the first three, I'd have bitten your hand off. So yeah, happy camp. We've a lot still to work on. I think our second half against Australia at the weekend was the first time this year where we go, right, like this is the style we want to play, this is how we want to play. So hopefully build on that. And yeah, big game this weekend against a Galway team who obviously came out and used didn't have the game at the weekend either. So
Mhm.
that's good for us. Probably a week
Yeah,
without a
they'll
game
be
for
chomping
Galway.
at the bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Karen, obviously that game didn't go ahead at the weekend. It was at your ground because the pitch wasn't in the best of quality at the time, and like probably safer for everyone that it didn't go ahead. But I think the last minute nature of it kind of had a few in the Galway camp a little bit riled up over the last day or so, you could say.
Yeah. And I think that that's totally understandable. I think the shoes on the other foot, we would share that frustration. Like we're already there to go out in the warm up. Um, the rain was absolutely biblical. Like I was coming up on the road, the visibility was so poor, the surface water was so bad. I think to address some of the points there, the under 17 game that was on beforehand, before Galway ever arrived to our pitch, we had some. I heard that there was some internal words there, that shouldn't have happened. I think we hold our hand up to that. We should have been the prioritised game. I don't think the pitch would have been playable whether which, just based on the amount of rain that fell. So obviously it's really, really disappointing for them, and they had some strong theories and comments about why that happened, and it will look like we benefited from this in a way, but to suggest that we were afraid to play them and stuff, that's unfounded. We had worked hard during the week to prepare for this game with the players that we had, and it's a bit unfair to our squad, I think, to suggest that. And we don't want to get into anything with Galway. I think that they're an excellent team. And like I said, I totally share their frustration at being called off the last minute, and they've dedicated their full day to it, to travel, and now there's going to be a refixed game. But if they're frustrated and they want to publicly air those views, that's also very, very fair. I don't know what more we can do about it. That the AstroTurf's not a sanctioned, I don't think it's a sanctioned pitch, and I don't know any senior player who wants to play an important game on AstroTurf either. And I know it might come across in a certain way from us, and that's fair. We'll just have to take it on the chin, and it is what it is. And if they're gunning for us the next time, I think that'll be fair enough. And there's no guarantee that we'll have any more or less players. Like, it's very unpredictable with injuries and stuff like that. And like, I could be out the next day. It's just the nature of the game. So I understand their frustration, and we accept it. Don't know what more to say. I won't be doing any articles on it or responding to
That's
anything.
fair enough. No, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about it, because obviously
Yeah, and I think
it kind of was
there's
a talking
lessons.
point, and
Yeah, I
there was
think
a
there's
lot of
lessons learned there, and I'm sure that will be sanctioned in some sort of way, given that that under 17 game went ahead. But like I say, I think that the rest of it is very much out of our control.
yeah. No, that's fair. And knowing you, I don't think you were ever the sort of person who's too happy at having to forfeit a game in that sort of circumstance.
Like,
You
we all
want to
gave up our
play, you want to be on the
Saturdays. Like
pitch.
I said, yeah, we gave up our Saturday as well. Like, that's a given. Like, it's really unfortunate that the distance travel was so bad. I think if it was a Dublin-based team, like if it was Rovers and they had to travel 10 minutes down the road, the feeling of frustration wouldn't be as great, but it is, and I would feel the exact same way as Galway did.
Well, we'll leave it at that, and hopefully and be entertained by when you do eventually meet Galway, or else just watch Scarlett and Shamrock Rovers have a fun time against them next weekend. Scarlett, you pulled together a bit of a team of the week for us. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a team of the week, so this is nice, going back to regular things. Some really interesting results over the weekend, some pretty outstanding performances. So do you want to run through who you have?
Yeah. So in goal, Ciara Keaton. Back three of Jade Riviere, Sarah Homeguard, and Leah Williamson. Midfield trio of Marina Caldente, Katrina Gorey, and Grace Clinton. On the left, we have Lauren James. On the right, we have Hannah Kane. And then up front, we have Kelly Gago and Elizabeth Turland.
Formerly of this parish, Emma Carroll was at the Liverpool Arsenal game, and it's funny, she was saying that Caldante was one of the players that when you actually get to see her in person and you see the movement that she has, and not just on a TV screen, how amazing she is to watch. Obviously, poor Emma wasn't as happy with the result, being a
Yeah.
Liverpool fan herself, but she was like, if I was watching them play any other team, this would be a privilege right now.
Yeah, I think even the way she took her goal, like the control with the foot on the ball and then to bend it in left corner, like there's very few players who would have controlled it even in that way. So she's kind of got a technical skill set that we wouldn't be overly used to seeing on this side, and you can kind of tell that Spanish flair that she has. And then you matched it with Gary, who's like robustness, just pure energy. Obviously it was a very good win for West Ham. It was kind of one of those games, wasn't high on quality, but kind of their key moments did come through Gary. Yeah, really good team. I suppose it's unusual that we see a keeper on the losing team go in goal, which is probably unusual as well, that we don't do it more often because they're the busier of the keepers, which I think was certainly the case with Ciara Keating coming back in as well. You know, she's had some mistakes and she's been in and out. So to put in performance like that, and keep her team in it for as long as she did, fair play, because she was getting peppered by Chelsea, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've had the conversation before around Courtney and some of the performances that she's had, where there's been times, like especially before Christmas, when Everton were particularly bad, and yes, they might have lost a game, but also they would have lost a game by about 5 goals more if
Yeah.
it wasn't for
Yeah.
having her in there. Scarlett, for you, what was the standout performance for the team this week?
I really liked the look of Hannah Kane. I thought she was really, really good. We got 2 assists in the game, and obviously, in that first half, Leicester were so, so good. And I think Brighton just were shell shocked and really just didn't get out of first gear. Brighton didn't, and Hannah Kane and her Leicester team took advantage of that. I thought she was really dangerous, a player that I hadn't really seen before. And I thought like we talk about the likes of Candenta there, just great ball control, good speed, come down the right and just getting balls into the box. And if you're a defender, like the last thing you want to be is like sort of back to your own goal and defending a cross coming in with players coming at you. So I was really impressed by her. And then as well, just on Keaton, I think it's difficult to come into a game like that where obviously it's been Yamashita in goal for the last while. And as like we were saying, Keating hasn't had probably the best season, and to come in and sort of keep City in the game like she did, I think is good for her confidence. And yeah, hopefully she features a bit more. I'm not sure what they'll do. I'd say they'll probably play Yamashita now on Thursday, but it's good for her to get a good performance like that, and despite the result.
It shows the difference in Everton's season and the turnaround that they're having, that we do have 2 players in there from them. And
Riker, no less.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Believe
I
it.
think that's happened a couple of times, though, hasn't it, since the new year for them? Like we've
Yeah.
had Gago in before. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
Gago and Tony Payne, I think are
Mm.
they're two best players now going forward. I've always liked Gago. She came in January, and I think she's been brilliant. We spoke so much before Christmas about Everton needing that, like you're not even out now goal scorer, but just a player to sort of get you a goal a game when you're really in dire need of it. And I think she's sort of that player. She set up a goal as well, and she's just one of those dangerous players who you never really want to face up against. And yeah, I think she's been the difference for Everton since Christmas. And yeah, another great performance for them and a great win.
One
Yeah.
thing that we have seen quite a lot of over the last week or two is Manchester City playing Chelsea, and they're going toe to toe with each other. The game at the weekend, highly controversial, you would say, and has also been very, very detrimental to Manchester City just in terms of the injuries that have come out of it. Scarlett, you've kind of taken a look at some of the games that we've had so far and given your thoughts on them. We still have more to come as well, just in case you weren't tired of
Yeah,
watching City play Chelsea.
yeah. Yeah, I suppose this goes back to about 2 weeks ago when they played the cup final. I know we didn't have a pod last week, but it's funny, like I thought Man City were all over them at times. Like I obviously they went up early, Chelsea did, but I just thought that City were sort of due a goal and they were due to win the game. Like they were Bunny Shaw had an awful amount of chances. Now a lot of them probably few long shots, few half chances kind of, but I thought the momentum was very much on City side. And then like Aaron Cuthbert spoke after the game yesterday and said, we always seem to find a way. And I think that just sums up Chelsea in the last few games. So like that League Cup final, I thought that City were actually really good. And obviously with Nick Cushion taking his first game in charge, it kind of gave me the vibes of when Jose Mourinho was sacked about 3 days before the League Cup final, and was it Ryan Mason came in, and it was just kind of weird timing of that sacking. So I know we probably haven't spoke about that yet either. But I think given the circumstances, I think City played really well and would probably feel hard done by in that game. And then obviously in the Champions League game a few days later comes out trumps. And I think I was actually impressed with Cushion himself, because that change at halftime, I know obviously not starting Miedema is a really big call to make, but then when she was brought on, like she was just the difference maker. I think they started with Fowler and she was kind of dropping in a lot more. And then Chelsea were able to squeeze up the pitch because they were given no options sort of in behind for runs. So you're kind of able to condense City to their own side of the pitch. So I think when she did come on and offered that sort of those in behind runs, they were able to get at Chelsea a lot more and came up trumps. And it's obviously another big game on Thursday, but I don't think you can ever count Chelsea out. Like they haven't been the best they've been at all in the last three games. Like even in the game at the weekend, I thought they were very poor. Obviously getting a last minute winner. But three performances, considering Chelsea have got two wins from those three, I think is mad because I think that's probably the worst we've seen them this season. And they still have their unbeaten run. They still have a chance, the quadruple. And I'm very excited because like Chelsea could come out and batter them 5-0, or anything could happen in this. If they come out with another performance like they did yesterday, I can't see it happening, but it'd be very interesting to see.
Karen, they have been so impressive, Chelsea, in the way that they've been able to scrape through games at times. As Scarlett said, you had that game a couple of weeks ago against Everton where it looked like they weren't going to do it. You obviously had the last minute winner at the weekend, and at that, City should have had the goal allowed, the Park one that was scored, and then the referee called it back because she had blown her whistle, and instead of playing advantage, gave a free kick. Cushing saying after the game that officials had told him that the goal should have been allowed. Now, I haven't seen any official confirmation of that one way or the other, just what he said. But I think out of anything we could have expected from this run of four games between these two sides in the space of like 10 days or whatever it was, we have kind of got it to the perfect point of climax where Chelsea are ahead on the amount that they've won. City are going to be raging after the weekend. City are also handed them their first defeat of the season. There's so much at play, and obviously with Chelsea's history in the Champions League as well, and how it doesn't always work out. Well, it has never worked out for them. There's just like who's gonna beat the demons of the storylines that are there.
Yeah, and I mean, from a City perspective, if you were asked which game, say you're going to win one of the next three, which game would you want to win? And to put themselves in this position, knowing how the ghosts of Champions League past might play on Chelsea's mind, like that's a huge win. It being in the Champions League, like obviously City slipping up yesterday is bad for Champions League hopes, which will play on their mind. But if they win the Champions League this year, it won't be a problem. I don't know, like you say, that's it. Like City can just play better football than them. I think we've said that from the start, but Chelsea finding a way has become a bit of a theme. But it's not just that. I think that their their self-belief is a huge thing, and that obviously comes from being unbeaten in the league so far this year. They've different people who can step up at different times. I thought Canarid was really, really good yesterday. She was involved in a lot. I know she maybe could have had a couple of goals, but she was really, really busy and gave them something else to think about with City taking an early lead. I think Chelsea will be in a bit annoyed with themselves that they stood off Carolyn so easily for that goal. But also I think it speaks to her quality that she kind of had them on skids. They didn't know whether to go or not. And if she can get in around the box, I think she can cause them trouble. So obviously being without Shaw, like it softens the blow when you do have someone of that quality coming in. It's so hard to call at this point. I thought Chelsea, based on how much they kept going till the end, and some of the chances they created and forced better saves off Keating than City did on the balance of things, probably deserved the result. Yesterday, I'm not saying that they played as well as they can play, but I think they probably deserved that yesterday. Getting a last minute winner is like the best feeling in the world, but I kind of wonder, will that kind of take away from them emotionally a bit? It'd be a bit draining because they wanted that so much. Whereas it might give City a bit more ammo. I don't know. It's just a game of chess really between them now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I loved the description that Sonia Baumposter gave Erin Cuthbert, and she's an aggressivity booster, which isn't the easiest thing in the world to say, especially
No.
if your friend should like shouting at someone from the sidelines. But you can see she is that sort of, I mean, she's been at Chelsea for so long now. She is a kind of stalwart in there, almost like a quiet stalwart in the way she jumps up at the important moments, probably doesn't get the plaudits of a big name player that comes in the same way.
She's the type of player I feel like can really drag other people through a game just through that energy and through like just the power and presence that she has and the way she goes about things. Like she's like an energizer bunny going around, and you can kind of feel the passion off there. And sometimes you need that injection. You can have all the quality in the world that you want, but sometimes you need that injection of passion. And that, like I said at the start of the program, she's one of those who you'd imagine is in the leadership group who people respond to very well. And having someone like that who can come on or who can play a game and bring that edge. And I think that's what it's about. It's about edge and having that and being able to call on someone, because that's the hardest thing in the world to kind of bring into a game. Sometimes you're just down, you're trying, like Ireland were the last time, you're down, you're trying. It's not like people aren't trying, but you're just lacking a certain edge. And she brings that. So to have someone like that in the squad, I think it's invaluable.
There's plenty of other places we could go, but considering the news that Gazy has left Manchester United for the rest of the season, gone on loan to Gotham, and the result at the weekend for United, which puts them kind of firmly enough in the Champions League places and puts Aston Villa in a very precarious relegation spot. It probably is the most interesting one to go to next. Scarlett, I know you were messaging in, was it this weekend or last
Yeah,
weekend,
I think it
about
was.
Aston Villa and where they're at with this relegation battle. And I think all of us had kind of said that we felt like they would have enough to hold on. And some very honest comments from their manager, to be fair, over the weekend about the position in and how they found themselves here. But they're on 10 points and Palace are on 9 points, 5 games left. So it really could go either way.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm actually just looking at the fixtures here. I think Villa have the easier running of the two, so that could benefit them greatly. They just haven't been up to standard at all. I think their last win was against Brighton, and I can't even remember, that was so long ago. I just can remember thinking of that during the week, looking it up. But yeah, like just it's kind of summed up their year. That defeat at the weekend, they tried defending, and to be fair, kind of held United off a little bit, but not for long. I think they're better in the second half, but they lack all things required to be a team to compete in the Super League, I think. Just lacking, like we spoke about them at the start of the year, and we were kind of thinking, oh, it'll be a high mid-table finish for them with the caliber of player they have. But then obviously, just with the managerial changes and different things like that, it's been a really tough year for them. And I think I've always said that I thought Palace would find a way to stay up. I think they've been probably more deserving of it than Villa, especially as Villa's are an established team in the league, and they know the ins and outs and they know other teams, but Palace coming in blind nearly. So nearly just for the hope of the fairy tale, like I kind of hope Palace do it, because I think Villa deserve to go down. I don't think they've anywhere near good enough, and I think a Villa team in the Championship isn't something we're exactly used to anymore. So it'll be a tight run in for sure. But what's 5 games left, so could go either way. But I just Villa are the deserving of the two to go down, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at it, like the amount of goals they've conceded 36 goals. I think we spoke about naivety of the Ireland team. I think they've been naive in their setup. We know they have quality players. They haven't quite been gelling, so that means you need to become a bit more reserved and become defensively sounder. And they were obviously playing in Villa Park at the weekend, big game against Man United. Man United were on the bounce back, having had that disappointing loss to Liverpool. They have a lot of attacking talent. I think that they were naive in their setup going into that game. Obviously, it helped that Man United were quite good, in their attack. I thought Jade Riviere was like really, really good from right back, and Scarlett, you had her in the team of the week. But yeah, she was just kind of played with a lot more confidence, I think, than I've seen. I suppose there was a lot of space in front for her to kind of meander up to, but I thought her contribution to the first goal, the ball around the corner for Bizet, and then Turland finishing it off, and her cross for Turland second, which was a great header as well. I thought she was really, really good. And then I suppose the other talking point from that game was the Grace Clinton goal, audacious effort that should have been a free in the other direction. But I guess when your luck's against you, it's against you. and you kind of have to try and pick yourself up from that. But at 3-0 down at halftime, it's given the form that Villa are in, that was game over, nail in the coffin for them. And Man United still only 9 goals conceded. So we spoke about their really horrible running at the end of the season. It's helping that City are dropping a few points. But yeah, even if they can pick up a couple of draws from those games and a couple of nil-alls, they're still in with a big shout for that Champions League spot, which is what I think the aim would have been at the start of the season.
Massive shot. I mean, they're 7 points ahead of City now. I know they do have the tougher run in, but you would just say with the injuries that have come out of City over the last while and that playing Chelsea like 4 times in such a short amount of time, that's going to be abrasive on any team going into the final run of the last 5 rounds. You also now have the longest serving manager in the WSL with Gareth
Since
departing. That means Mark Skinner has been in there the longest, which I don't think is one any of us would have predicted either, Card.
no, that was not on my 2025 bingo card. I don't think we can argue with it now. The team are playing well, defensively very good. I think my main pain point with Man United over the last few years has been obviously replacing Russo. I think Turland is a great replacement, but aside from that, it's been the other recruitment, and lack of kind of marquee players who can bring this team to the next level. You're still kind of hoping to get that Champions League spot. There's no part of me that's like, oh, Man United can compete against Chelsea, Arsenal if it comes to a title race. So that's the next step for me, and I don't know how much say the manager has in that. But it falls back on him eventually because he's the face of it all. So if they get Champions League now, I don't think they'll be given the resources to go big in the transfer window. So he's going to have to get really, really creative. Yeah, it's a mad one. Mark Skinner. Mark Skinner.
Some man, some man. I think you're right.
Man.
They're not going to
Oh,
get the
man.
resources. Like they're, if you look at the way the men's team is being talked about, never mind the women's team, and also the fact that the higher ups who shall not be named in United don't even know who the captain of the club was. It doesn't really signal a lot of benefit, but you never know. Champions League football, maybe that does wake up things a little bit more. Gonna look quickly at Arsenal versus Liverpool. Fairly dominant performance from them, 4-0 win, as we were talking about during the team of the week. There was some nice goals. Felt very unfortunate for Liverpool. Probably shouldn't have been as many goals as it was. Jasmine Matthews had one of those days that you probably just want to go home and forget ever happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it was all Arsenal. You can take this one, Scarlett.
yeah. There's not much to say. I thought Liverpool actually defended really well in patches. I thought for a while they were kind of keeping Man United shut. Obviously, Arsenal shut. Um, they I think they're always quite solid at the back. But obviously said Matthews just had one of those days. Probably go home and cry into a pillow. But yeah, I think it's testament to Arsenal's brilliance up front. I thought, as we've talked about already, Candente was brilliant. Great goals scored, and it's just that constant pressure. Like it's one of those where the two own goals, if Matthews wasn't there to put them in, there was someone right behind her, an Arsenal shirt to tap it in. So I think they would have been goals either way. But yeah, another professional performance in the Emirates, obviously. And I think, yeah, it's great. Arsenal love playing in the Emirates. I don't know if actually I was gonna say there, Chelsea don't have the best record in Stamford Bridge either, don't they? It's funny.
Yeah.
I think every time Arsenal play in the Emirates, they tend to win.
I think I do honestly think some of it is down to the crowd in that like Arsenal have very much made the Emirates feel like it is the women's stadium as much as the
Mm,
men's. Like I've gone to games for both sides there, and obviously, yeah, there are their differences as there always is in these crowds, but you don't feel like, oh, I'm going to the men's stadium for the day or for the match. You feel like the whole place
Mm.
has been kitted out for the women's team, whereas I don't know, I don't really feel like Chelsea women have that same relationship with Stamford Bridge, and also they don't attract the same levels of crowds. Like
mm.
Slough obviously packed out the Emirates a couple of times now, and the times they don't, they're not that far off it either, so it's not as much of a difference. Whereas you don't like it would be a lot rarer to see Stamford Bridge filled. So I think there definitely is that. I feel like the women definitely feel more of an ownership over the Emirates than a lot of other teams in the league feel about the main stadiums, or however. I never really know what the best way to like refer to them is.
We'll say main stadium, yeah.
Yeah, main stadiums. Yeah, no, definitely nice to see them doing well. This Liverpool team are so up and down this season and more down the last while that it's kind of hard to know how much to put into it. Obviously, nice to bounce back after what was a horrendous performance against Real Madrid in horrendous conditions as well. But at the same time,
See, but bad pitches everywhere.
it's not just that females, it's even that juggernauts like Real Madrid, they don't even open up the Bernabeu for the women, so but even pitch aside, I don't they just looked at sea, and I don't think I'd be very surprised if they were able to put in a big enough comeback performance this week. Now that may be me doing the classic fan thing of hoping that I'll say this and I'll be entirely wrong, but
What do you think it is? Do you think it's like they're used to being the more technical team, and then when a team kind of has a bit more of that than them, that they haven't had to face that kind of player? Or
I
what do
think
you think
it
it
I
is?
think it
Is
is a
it a
little bit
mental
of
thing?
that, but I also think what I saw was, say where like Arsenal were at before Slaggers came in the league, and not having that cohesiveness and not having that, this is my spot in the team, so I know exactly what's happening and I know what the game plan is. And a bit like the Ireland Slovenia game, once it was very clear that they weren't sure what the game plan is and they weren't sure how they were going to play Real Madrid, they just shut down. And there's no, for a team that does have so many experienced players, again, it's probably a bit like the Aaron Cuthbert example. You wanted someone to come in, take the game by the scruff of the neck and be like, look, we have the skill, we have the players. We're just not pulling it together at all today. And that's what we need to do. So I think it definitely was missing that sort of player. I would have said, like in the past, Katie would have been that player probably for Arsenal a lot of the times. Kim Little as well. Beth Mead, those sort of leadership players in there, but for some reason, I don't know if the heads just went a little bit with how bad the quality was of the pitch, and also the amount of ACL injuries that that team has had. I can imagine that was definitely playing on all their minds, but we'll see. I'll be surprised if they can turn it around this week, but you never know.
What are your thoughts on Maxenius? Because watching her when she starts games, I think is so different. Like I think she's just one of those players that is just a better player coming off the bench as an impact sub. Um, I just watching her the other night against Madrid, I just think she looked kind of lost at sea. But for some reason, when she does come on, I suppose there is players like that. She just seems to bed in so much easier, and maybe it's due to tired legs when she comes on after 60 minutes. But I know she got taken off after at half time, so. I just what if it's just like is it a mental thing? Is it just the way she is as a player?
I've always felt for a long time that for Arsenal anyway, she was going to be the impact sub player. I mean, realistically, when she was brought in, and if you looked at the options that we had, she wasn't going to be that starting player. She was going to be the person that maybe could develop a relationship with the players in there, but was probably more likely going to be the one that you would call in 60, 70 minutes if you needed a goal. Um, She's like one of those players, whenever I think of her, I think of her popping up in very key moments and getting a goal that is really, really needed. But it's never in games that she starts, as you've said. It's always when she's come off the bench. And I wish she had been able to make more of a stamp on the team. Like I think that's been partly our problem, in that Arsenal are a side that have a lot of different goal scorers, but they don't have that one. This again, same problem for the men's team, that kind of out and out striker who you can depend on to get your 20 plus goals or whatever it is that you need a season. And I think there had been some hope that between her and Miedema, we will get back to that place. But then obviously Miedema's injury and her leaving City, it just never really formed. So yeah, I think she's very easy to run out of a game when she starts, which is always unfortunate. If that answers your question.
It's like, if we can see this, why hasn't anyone else figured this out? Like, why hasn't Renee Segers figured this out? She's been there for long enough, you know?
Yeah. Well, I
It's
suppose
funny.
she's
I
only
suppose,
just in as well in terms of actually having control over the team.
yeah, yeah, fair enough. Jonas never, well, I suppose Jonas never really started her, did he?
So what did Jonas ever really do anything as well? You know my feelings on him at this stage, Scarlett. Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe, but maybe there was a role for that. Like
Maybe.
if you were planning on keeping Miedema in there and getting her back to fitness
Mm.
and having her as the out and out, and then bringing on Blackstenius instead. I don't know. Maybe there was some sort of plan there. I'm very aware that we're running out of time, so I will just quickly run through the other fixtures that happened over the weekend. An unfortunate loss for Tottenham at the weekend. I did have them up here, now they've disappeared on me. Yeah, against West Ham, 2-0 loss for them. Leicester with a big result for them just in terms of their season, a 3-2 win against Brighton. Brighton once again returning back to the throes of inconsistency that we have seen from them so far this season. And then Everton getting a massive win over Crystal Palace. We talked a little bit about that during our team of the week. I mean,
Just on that, I saw a good few highlights from it, and I have to say, like, Abby Larkin looked pretty bright in spots when she was on the ball. Um, so it's positive, I guess, we can take from that. To have a starter, and she played with confidence. I think that's a huge thing. So if we could get her playing consistently, she could have more of an impact, hopefully, in the next camp than this one.
yeah, and she does seem to be getting a bit more game time this half of the season, which is really good to see from an Irish perspective. And I think you can even see that a little bit. I know we didn't get to see much of her in the last setup, but does look a little bit sharper than when she wasn't playing all that regularly before Christmas. So that is very good to see. But for today, Scarlett, Karen, thank you very much. Look forward to hearing all your thoughts on the squad announcement. So
Mm.
reminder, that's 9:30 on Tuesday morning, the 25th of March. 9:30, that squad will be announced, and then press conference with Carla Ward from 10 a.m. So I'll expect you'll start seeing stuff from that around the afternoon. Thank you very much for listening. The COYGIG Pod on Off the Ball is brought to you by Cadbury, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. We will chat to you all again next week.